Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time talking episode 1 of season 3 of The Flash called Flashpoint. And while I'm extremely excited for season 3, this episode, it didn't quite work for me, but it's not really because of anything that the episode itself does particularly wrong. It's really just more a case of my personal tastes. And what I'm referring to here is that when they do these alternate reality stories, there's always these sort of moments where you see the characters and they're really very different, and the hero kind of has a tendency to sort of go in there and start acting like they're the people from the timeline that they know. And of course, that doesn't quite work out the way that they do. And it's just sort of one of those things in storytelling that for whatever reason, just rubs me the wrong way. And again, it's nothing that the story itself really does, although there are several things here that in this alternate universe that really don't make very much sense. Like, why is Joe this lazy bum that hates his job, and why aren't he and Iris not getting along? I mean, there's no mention whatsoever of the Harrison Wells of this universe. What exactly did Cisco do to become super rich? Why did Caitlin become a child, a children's eye doctor? I mean, it's like these characters are different just for the sake of being different, rather than for any clear reason. There's also the question of where in the world did Wally get that Flash costume? Okay, you know, it's a one episode alternate reality story. I suppose we shouldn't pick at it too much, but still. Um, really, the only stuff in this episode that I thought was really super strong was that relationship between Barry and Vaughn. And I love how there's this bit at the beginning where Vaughn even says to him, you're gonna before this is all over, you're gonna beg me to kill your mother. And while Barry doesn't exactly beg him, he does say, I need you to kill my mother. So, kind of at the end of the day, Vaughn wins. And, this is really kind of another example of why he is basically the Flash's arch nemesis. He knows a lot more about all of this stuff than Barry does, and it's really his own ego that tends to trip him up. And I really love this sort of interesting moment that they share, where after Barry is forced to ask Thawne to kill his mother, he goes, "I hate you." And Thawne goes, "Well, I hate you too. And sometimes I wonder which one of us is right." Well, considering the number of people that Thawne has murdered, pretty obviously Barry is in the right. And this does kind of continue that we still don't really have a very clear explanation as to why Thawne hates Barry so much. But we might get a little bit of a clue this episode where he says, "This time I get to be the hero." Now, in the comics, the idea was that Eobard Thawne was basically the Flash's biggest fan. And then he ultimately sort of learned about Flash's history and realized that he was destined to become the Reverse Flash, and instead of being a great hero like the Flash, which is what he wanted more than anything like, he was destined to become the Flash's ultimate nemesis. And this just caused him his mind to snap. It's sort of like if you were to find out that you were, when you're a young person, that you're destined to basically grow up to be like the next Hitler or something. Okay, maybe not quite exactly in those terms, but you were destined to grow up to be somebody that would go down in history as a terrible, terrible person. Well, it's kind of understandable that might cause your mind to go. And I really would love to find out exactly just like why is it that Eobard Thawne hates him so much. Now, if you're familiar with the Secret Diary of Iris West, or that Mark Waid wrote, it gets a little bit more into the Vaughn lineage and all of that. That's also another possible explanation. Um, Thaddeus Thawne, Melody Thawne, other very important people in the Thawne lineage. But that's complicated stuff for another time. Let's see, what else do we have to say? Also, you have to stop and think. Just because of all that time travel stuff you've done, whatever very quote unquote wrong Thawne has been erased from history, and yet he's still going after our Barry because he's just that damn peg. That's kind of what one of the things that I really like about the show's interpretation of Thawne as a villain. I mean, you hate him so much. But me personally, I also sort of look at him and feel a little bit sad because, like it or not, in a lot of ways, when it comes to everything superhuman and sciencey, he's still the best teacher that Barry ever had. And there's a reason why this is Professor Zoom we're talking about. And it's hard not to look at him and think, man, if this is someone that, if he could have just stopped being so petty and selfish, could have been a hero every bit as good as Barry, maybe even better. But he's an example of the person's tragic flaw that really prevents them from being a hero and puts them in the path of a villain. Magneto is a great example. Magneto was going out there and trying to do something very noble, but it's kind of he's controlled by his own anger that he just cannot accept coexistence. He has to dominate. Mutants have to rule, and if mutants have to rule by following him and sort of worshiping him as a living god, well, he's not going to complain about that too much. Now, of course, there's a lot more to be said about Magneto. I mean, he's a character with a history of over 50 years, so we're just going to leave it at that. But I'm probably thinking way too much of Magneto. Okay, well, whatever. So let's see, what else do we have to say? Some nice moments with Iris, her realizing that in the alternate reality Barry comes from, that she and he were in love. Nice stuff with Barry's parents. Oh man, how do you not feel bad for Barry's mom, where she kind of gets that momentary reprieve, and then it's sort of like, oh nope, you're getting stabbed to death after all. Really, really liked Wally as Kid Flash, especially how much that name upsets him. And of course, the Kid Flash costume looks fantastic. It is amazing. I love it. Nothing really particular to say about the rival. He's a character I honestly don't know very much about. I vaguely recall him being mentioned in some comics that I've read, but he's primarily a Jay Garrick sort of character. Here it looks like he's being transferred to sort of being Wally's personal rival, as it were. But again, he's not really a character I know very much about, although it was kind of cool to see him just like take off his mask and say like, hey, my name's Edward Claris, I'm going to kill you. Reminds me of a Green Arrow story that I read one time where some guy is trying to kill Green Arrow. He's a really crazy good archer, and he just says like, yeah, my name's like Dave Smith, or no, not Dave Smith. You might know who Dave Smith is. Well, like, yeah, my name is Dan Jones, and I'm gonna kill you. Like he doesn't have a costume, he doesn't have some crazy supervillain name. He just like, and the guy's name wasn't actually Dan Jones. I just can't remember what it was. It was like a perfectly ordinary guy's name. Let's see here. Yeah, nothing really huge to say about Cisco and Caitlin this episode. It was just kind of hilarious where Caitlin said, "Can I go now?" Like, just sort of like walks off. And I definitely did like that moment where Barry kind of points out, like, reminds Cisco of the time when he was 15, he gave his money to his brother because his brother owned a bookie. I mean, that was a nice moment. But of course, now the timeline has been tinkered with slightly, and Barry's going to have to live with the fallout of all of this. So it's going to be really interesting to see exactly what the changes have been. I don't think they're going to be super, super crazy, but things like maybe Pied Piper probably being on more friendly terms with Team Flash, that would be cool. I'd definitely be down for that because in the comics, of course, Pied Piper is generally a good guy these days, and I would totally be up for seeing some more Pied Piper. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, we also sort of get our first hint at our major villain for this season, Doctor Alchemy. Don't really know what's going on with him. His voice is being provided by the guy who did Jigsaw in the Saw movies, which very cool. I mean, last time around, Zoom had the voice of Tony Todd, Candyman. So now we've got the voice of Jigsaw coming in for our main villain. Um, nice touch. I've never watched any of the Saw movies. Those are seriously not up my alley, but I'm definitely looking forward to that. Seriously looking forward to seeing Tom Felton pop up as one of the new characters this season. And yeah, again, nothing really wrong with this particular episode. It just kind of didn't jive with my particular tastes. Alternate reality stories are tricky to do well, and again, nothing particularly that this episode did wrong. Just it kind of pushes my buttons in the wrong way when it comes to alternate reality stories. To each his own. But nonetheless, Flash is back, and I am very, very, very excited for this season. Just a quick note, if you're one of my regular viewers, you might have heard me mention that I'm getting ready to move. Depending on how busy I am tomorrow, this will probably be the last video I do before my move. So if that proves to be the case, I won't be able to get any more reviews up until at least Sunday. If you've ever moved, you know that there's just a million things you have to do, and it's going to be a busy time for me. But come early next week, I should have my movie should complete, all my ducks should be in a row, and I'll get things back on track as quick as I can. There is a extraordinarily exciting TV season coming, and I cannot wait to share my thoughts on everything that's happening with you guys. So, with that said, as always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. Please follow me on Twitter at Who's Your Jedi if you're not already doing so. I do send out the links to these videos as soon as they're posted, so if you want to see them as quick as possible, that's the fastest way to do it. And you can, of course, also join me on Tumblr at Jedi Reviewer. Until next time, take care and have a good one.